Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
All right, so today we got a really special guest. I was introduced to this guest, actually built a relationship through being a guest on the podcast. So Jesse Vasquez is a co-host of The Big Break Show, amongst many other things that he does. And my first impression of him was, wow, this guy is like very relatable. He has a charm to him. And he's the guy I would want to hang out with, like outside of like this podcast. And so I started digging into him a little bit and realized, man, he has a sales background. Then I found out he's this, midterm rental specialist. And then he has this AirVenture co-hosting company where he's even teaching students how to do the same thing. And he's just like killing the space. And right now I think, we're just super excited to have you on. So Jesse, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? I'm welcome to hang out with you anytime, dude. Just come on over. We'll drink some cream sodas together. We'll hang out. We'll make some popcorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we'll be like
I saw you.
I was gonna say we'll be like Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber, buddy.
Harry, all about that. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time. Like,
mine too, dude.
Growing up, I was like, dude, I don't know how many times I've seen that movie, but it's
all right. Hang on, Omid. Before we jump into this, what's your favorite quote from that movie? Go ahead.
Oh man, quotes. Okay, so
he's not a quote guy. He's not a quote guy.
Okay, I'm not a quote guy, but you mean I have a chance? Like, I don't know if that's how exactly.
You killed it, Omid. You killed this.
I got you. I'll back you up.
All right.
All right.
Here's what. Samsonite. Oh man, I was all the way wrong.
All right. Here's mine now. All right, guys, you ready? Here's mine. If you guys are watching this, you're gonna get it. We landed on the moon? No way. Do you guys know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right. I love that part, you guys. It's my favorite.
Oh.
So Dumb and Dumber. There we go. I feel this is a great transition. So maybe tell me, like, I feel like this is a lot about like freedom and expression and so tell us a little bit about yourself for like the listeners who don't know who you are, and if they don't know who you are, they should know who you are, but maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Let me get a swig of some O2 here in the morning. So my name is Jesse Vasquez. I drink a lot of water, and I talk about midterm rentals on a regular basis. So I'm actually born and raised in Central California, which is Turlock, by the way, from Modesto, if you guys are familiar with that. I come from a long line of immigrants that were actually, moved to this country in the early 60s, and I watched my family grow up and have real estate. They came here with literally nothing in their pockets and were able to build this pretty decent life for myself and my brothers. And in that process, I learned a lot of things about real estate, not necessarily in the best way. So I'll kind of give you guys an example of what I learned in real estate. I'm going to take you guys back right now, okay? So 1989, I was in a vehicle. Have you guys ever seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You guys watch, and not like Omid, where he's like, yeah, I know what movie you're talking about. Rookie year. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, call me out.
But anyway, I was in the back of a vehicle, and this doesn't sound good. I'm starting it off this way. I'm in the back of a vehicle in 1989. Okay, guys, just I need you to roll with me here for a second. It was a Woody. Ooh, that even makes it worse, right? Those cars are called Woodies. In the back of a car, there's a station wagon. My parents were sitting in the front seat. My dad was driving. My mom was in the passenger seat. And I remember sitting down, looking at the car was green velvet. I remember running my hands across the velvet of the car as they were driving. And they were in an argument. And that argument was about real estate. So that was my introduction to real estate. They were arguing because I grew up in a very Catholic household, like a lot of Hispanic folks. I'm Mexican. And they were arguing because my family had, my dad would always allow people to stay, like not pay, they'd literally not pay rent And he'd just be like, oh, okay, just pay me next month. Pay me next month. And guess what ended up happening? When in the backseat of that car, filling that valve in the car, listening to my parents argue, which they never really argued, was because my dad allowed people to stay in properties and they didn't get paid. Literally, probably since 1989 to about, I'm going to say 1996, which is about a good 8 years, I watched my family go to court literally 6 or 7 times. And I remember being a little kid sitting in the back of a courthouse and listening to a judge say, Mr. Vasquez, how many more times do you have to go through this? Like, this is like a true story, you guys. So my parents were literally just let people kind of take advantage of them. And my dad always told me about real estate, how it was so important. And I realized as I grew up that I wanted to make sure that I got into real estate because essentially I watched my parents make a pretty decent amount of money with real estate and being immigrants. But not only that, but I wanted to make sure I got paid, right? So hence Airbnb, hence midterm rentals, which is all ways to get paid. So I guess that's kind of myself and a little introduction to what real estate was for me, even though media didn't go there. But
Wow. Yeah, listen to the story there. 89, Woody. Yeah.
that's the car. Ooh.
Yeah. How cool is that? But, everybody got, their cool way of introducing themselves into real estate. And I think, there's no better way than your parents, right? Like, I just listened to your story. I'm just sitting here saying, darn, I kind of wish I had a story when I was in the back of a station wagon. We had one, and they was arguing about real estate, right? But that's super cool. But you got long-term rentals out there, you got short-term rentals out there, and then you got mid-term rentals out there. Which a lot of people, when I even tell them that, they say, "Mid-term rentals? What are you talking about?" So if you could just define what a mid-term rental is.
Yeah, so a midterm rental is like kind of like the in-betweener, the upside down world between long-term rent and short-term rent. So for those stranger things, are we talking about movies today, you guys? Like, is today just like a movie podcast, television shows? Like, obviously you guys can tell I'm obsessed with like videos and movies and stuff like that. But anyway, so midterm rentals are 30 days or more. I don't think there's really a definition book because I don't think there's not really enough out there about it. So I consider it 30 days to 6 months or a little bit longer, 6 to 9 months. So that's what I consider a midterm rental. So you have that kind of in between short term, which is 1 to 2, 3, 7, 10 days, and then long term being obviously like a yearly contract. So it's in the middle between those two things.
Okay, cool. So one of the things I heard you say, which is phenomenal to me, right? And you talked a little bit about your parents, is about gratitude. You said your mom always mentioned, be grateful, right? I guess, as a kid, I tell my son that he really not trying to hear what I have to say, but I'm hoping that, it sticks with him into his adulthood. But I guess, can you tell everyone, me, all the listeners, how important it is to be grateful?
Yeah, dude. So for me, that's one of and today actually I was in the shower. This is a little weird right now. I know it was warm. It was warm water. It wasn't cold shower.
Wait, but was it after you used a squatty potty? Because I know you're a big squatty potty guy.
I'm a bidet guy now too, by the way. You guys, anybody ever use a bidet? Yeah. Holy crap! No pun intended. Life changer, you guys. Life changer. So yeah, let me kind of break it down to gratitude. So that's another thing I'm going to talk about now. The bidet, you guys. That the gratitude is literally. So I grew up as a kid. I would continue to, Lenny, tell your son about being grateful. I think that's something that will become instilled into him as did I as a child. My mom, like I mentioned, you guys, I grew up in a very Catholic household, and for us, gratitude was a very, very part of life. And me, and as an adult now, it's still what it is. And I think for me, it's just being told like, "Hey, you just woke up," like, that's like literally winning $1 million. My mom would say things like that, like, you get to feel the sun on your skin. I think a lot of times when we get successful or we're chasing these things, we're looking for new opportunities, we're trying to build wealth for our families, that we forget about the regular, everyday, mundane things that make us human, like, right, part of the, the regular days of life. Like, one day turns into a month, turns into a year, and we forget those little small things. But if you really could just take a step back and actually truly be thankful and grateful for things, like for me, literally this morning, taking a shower, I was literally, I swear, I kid you guys not, I was in the shower. I was fully clothed in the shower. I'm just kidding. And dude, just to have warm water, like, how fucking lucky are we to excuse me, I'm cussing right now. I don't know if you guys can bleep that out.
No,
But
yeah, it's fun.
Do your thing, brother. Do your
okay,
thing.
okay, cool. I'm a cusser, so I apologize now. How freaking amazing. We live in a time where we can have warm water in the shower. There's literally people in other countries today that are around now that don't have that luxury. And like, how grateful are we to live in a place that can have warm water? Just small things like that, where people take, little individual things for granted. I think it's an incredible process to absorb and to think about, and to actually be momentary in those times and realize, like, holy crap, I have this, what is this? Hydro flask that I paid $40 for, and this keeps my water cold all day long. Like, how freaking amazing of a time do we live in, you guys? Like, let's be grateful for things like that. Like, I think it's so important. It really, really is. To actually feel gratitude. It's one thing to think it, but to actually truly feel it is another. And we can get into that if you guys want to.
Yeah, so like so as a kid, I would, this kind of resonates with me. When as a kid, I would be dropped off in Colombia, and there was no warm water. Before like cold plunging was a thing. It was like, okay, you're showering in cold. It's a cold shower. So there was no like water heater, and that was very normal. So kind of like what you described. And I think coming to the States, you're like, oh wow, there's like all these things that people take for granted. So we get into this like comparison game. So it just like social media, it's like bad for mental health to a degree. You see people like, you see their highlight reels. So what would you say to somebody who's just like struggles with that? Like, what are like some processes or something you can do to kind of build that as a habit as far as like gratitude in general?
Yeah, I think just practicing, sitting down and just giving yourself a moment of no social media and really just thinking about, like, what am I truly grateful for right now? You can have literally nothing and be grateful to be alive. You know what I mean? Because hundreds of thousands of millions of people don't have the luxury of just being able to wake up and feel the sun on their skin or the breeze in their hair. Just very simple things, man, that like at the end of the day, like we have so much to be grateful for. And I think that a lot of times people look at things in monetary value, right? They look at the dollar amount, what these people are doing on social media, what kind of cars they're driving. They're living the best lives on vacation and they're at the beach. But in reality, like, you can't do any of those things if you're not alive. So first off, that's like a really freaking, we could have been born a shoe or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, well, instead we became, you know what the chances are of being an actual human, you guys? It's 700 trillion to 1. This is real. Look it up.
Yeah.
700 trillion to 1. What are the fucking odds of us being alive and human and being a sperm and egg at that one time to be like, boom, there you are, Lenny. There you are, Omid, right? Like, it's fucking crazy, dude. Like, we live in, like, we're alive. 700 trillion to 1. Everybody soak that in for a second. Like, literally just sit here and think about 700 trillion to 1. You're that one. We all have that one opportunity. And it's just like, man, if you really think about it, and that's like on a cellular level, how incredible is life? Like, how incredible are we to be here? So for me, it's just, it's taking me back right now just thinking about that. Like, holy crap, I could have been a freaking, Jordan or a freaking, a shoe, or I could have been a freaking, a Fila or some crap, but you know what I mean?
No, that's super cool. No, that's right. And you're absolutely right. I just got a text maybe 2 days ago. Yeah, I'm in a group text with some long-term friends I've known for forever. And he texted me, us, and said, hey guys, man, I'm just sitting outside right now, just being appreciative to see these birds fly in the air, and listening to that or reading that, I just was like, man, thank you. Because, we take so many things for granted, where we really should be taking the moments. And one of the things I do, today is every morning when I get up, I write a minimum of 5 reasons why I'm grateful. And just like you mentioned, it could be anything. It can be the hot water, right? It's my wife. Yay, man, I'm grateful to wake my eyes up to a beautiful woman next to me. I can be single in the bed. You know what I mean? And one of the quotes that I love is, comparison is the theft of joy. So, I read that a lot because you don't want to compare yourself. But I want to get into, something that you mentioned, and I really love it. I kind of wrote it down, right? And, you said, get in it and go. Right. And I want you to coin that, and I'm coining it, for you right now, because, we have a lot of people who come up into this real estate game and go through this analysis paralysis thing, over learning and not getting in it and go to figure it out. So I guess let's start there. Like, can you give, a little bit to that?
Yeah. You just said it perfectly, Lenny. I think a lot of this space is like, and we were all there, Omid, and we were listening to Bigger Pockets probably back in the day and like soaking in this all information, reading real estate books. But at the end of the day, like you have to actually take initiative. You got to like education before compensation. It's something I talk about on a regular basis. You got to educate yourself, but at some point you're just like, dude, I got to do it. And I think that once you put yourself in that situation where whether it's you're arbitraging your first unit, you're going to buy your first property, you narrow things down to what market you're going to get into, just go all in tractor beams. Like you got to just be like, boom, that's it. And I think once you get in that situation, this is where it's really hard to have an entrepreneurial mindset, especially if you've been a W-2 employee, because differentiating between the two is somebody's kind of telling you what to do, and entrepreneurship is like, I got to figure it out. And once you like clearly pass that line in the sand, that imaginary line, this is where like the beautiful things start to happen into people, because you will literally get yourself in a situation, you're not overthinking things, you're just like, I'll figure it out. And that's this like crazy thing that happens once you leave that mindset of what I've done as a W-2 employee to entrepreneurship. And you can do both at the same time. But if you have that mindset of like, I'm going to make things happen, I'm going to figure it out, I think that's where truly people start evolving and growing, because you're not comfortable with it and you have to face that kind of adversity in a way, and you got to learn it out, you got to figure it out. But at the end of the day, if you really want something bad enough, you'll figure it out, trust me.
So I love that, because for the longest time I always had the W-2 mindset. So I was the best employee. Like I was an employee and I wanted to move up, and I was whoever was around me, I just wanted to compete. But then at some point there is, limitation. And so, but there's also that big fear of jumping into entrepreneurship, because you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And so I like that you phrase it, education before compensation. And so, but a lot of people get into that, but never really go beyond that. So for somebody who struggles with that and is kind of interested, so maybe some of the listeners are like, they're like, hey, I'm hearing these stories, I really want to do it. Like, what are some steps? Like, what can you do in order to get started? Let's say I want to do the real estate thing, and I want to be Jesse Vasquez. I want to get into this MTR space. Like, he's a cool guy. He has this, hosting, educational program. What do I need to do?
Yep. Yeah. So you guys probably already know this, but a lot of people listening probably don't. And a lot of people probably are worried about what other people think. I would say the most important thing is to get around people that have the same mindset that you do, whether that's a Facebook group, whether that's a coaching program, whether that's a real estate meetup. And Tony, Omid, you know this, I just called you Tony. Omid, you know what I'm talking about. Every time I think of Tony, I think of Omid, like you guys two together. So sorry for that. You're gonna have to exit this part out. Tony's gonna call you and be like, "Oh wait, I just heard Jesse say Tony and Jesse, or Tony and Omid."
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys just being around the right kind of people. I think that's where a lot of that hindrance, when it's like, what do I do? When you're around people that are in the same mindset that you are, like that's where you can actually start building relationships with people that are going to be around for years. And not only that, but these people are rooting for you, unlike family or friends that are just like, dude, what are you doing? That's stupid. Don't do that. You have other people that have the same mindset. And I think at the end of the day, I'm a victim of this at one point too. My family was like, what are you going to do? Like, you're buying a house for nurses? Like, are you freaking crazy? That's stupid. And now they're just like, dude, you're a freaking genius. Yeah, you became a millionaire. That's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's just surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you up rather than bring you down. And that could be something that you pay for. That could be something that you get for free. And there's so many people around the world that want to be better or to educate themselves in the space. So surround yourself by those people. I mean, that's super important. They're going to encourage you.
That's great. Honestly, I mean, nothing else to be said to that, Jesse. I mean, you nailed that one out the park, right? So I guess let's just get into it, man. All right, midterm rentals. Like, how did you find this? You got some long terms, you got some short terms, and here you go, boom, right there, smack in the middle and killing it. So let us know, man. How did you find these short term rentals?
Yeah, dude. Midterm rentals. Yeah. I found it just by literally paying attention to my environment. It's literally what it is. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for people in this space. And I'll give you guys a short, brief description of what I did. So I worked in healthcare for the last 18 years. I left in July of 2021. And my job at that time was to go into these hospitals and, Omid, if you fell and broke your hip and Lenny is a case manager, my job was to go in and become friends with Lenny so that Lenny could send me you as a referral. And what I mean by that is I would have a nurse that would go to the house. I'd have physical therapy at the house. So everything that you need would be taken care of at your home. That was my job. Back in 2015, I was in hospitals and there was this beautiful lady. Her name was Barbara. And she had the most amazing accent. In California, everybody says dude and bro and man, just like Omid and I are saying this all the time. Like we're just like, super California, right? And she was saying things like, oh, don't you know? And what else did she say? She said, don't you know, And she said, oh, be careful, there's deer outside, like stuff like that. And I'm just like, holy crap, what are you doing here? Barb, I love your accent. And she's like, yeah, I'm from Fargo. So if you guys probably know or watch the show Fargo or the movie Fargo, everybody has this really cool Midwestern accent. And she said, I'm a travel nurse. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, where are you staying? And she said, Motel freaking 6. And I was like, holy crap, which one, on 9th Street? And just so you guys know, 9th Street is like, there's literally like prostitutes and like heroin addicts. Yeah, it's literally straight hood. And I was like, what are you doing there? How much are you paying a month? She's like, $3,000. And I'm just like, holy crap, back in 2015, I could buy a property in the Central Valley for, under $300K, actually $270. My mortgage payment would be about $1,250 plus, the insurance, I'd probably be right around $1,400, $1,500. And I would be able to make literally $1,000 to $1,500 by just renting to Barb. So that's where my mindset went, was like, every hospital that I go into, I'm seeing these travelers. I'm asking them the same thing. So it was literally me just paying attention to my environment and really soaking that in. And I think you have to do that in a lot of ways when you're looking for an opportunity. So for me, in 2015, that was like my first introduction. I bought my first real estate specifically to house travel medical professionals. And I went into the HR department. I like knocked on the door there and I was like, hey, how do I house people like Barbara? Do you guys have contracts or something like that? And they were basically like, yeah, actually, we don't have any housing here. We are looking for people to contract with. And you just came in at the perfect time. So that was like where it all started for me, is just paying attention to what's going on in my environment.
Dude, I mean, I love that. Like, I think it's, I think you don't maybe like emphasize this enough, but I think there's like you're problem solving. So you're essentially identifying that there's an opportunity and you're creating the solution for it. So, I think that's pretty amazing. And so you see this opportunity, it kind of falls on your lap. I imagine you did this multiple times, and then now you start kind of sharing like this process with others so they can do it. So like somebody who's, doesn't have your background, how do you, I guess, coach them? Because maybe Jesse has this Jesse charm, right? Like it just like you put it on and then, people throw the contract at you before you even, finish your sentence. So like,
yeah,
I would say like for the average person, or maybe somebody who's getting new to the space and they're just still developing those skills, like how would they, I guess, start the process?
Yeah. Well, first off, you got to educate yourself in the space. So the healthcare industry obviously had 18 years in there. So I have kind of a unique story when it comes to this. And just so you guys know, everything in healthcare is based around contracts. Whether you're a doctor, you're taking on privileges at a hospital, it's a contract. If you're a nurse that has a job at a specific hospital for a duration of time, that's a contract. If you're if you're a janitor working in a hospital, you have a contract. Like literally that's how the healthcare system works. Everything is contractual based. Even our insurance, it's all contracts. Housing is no different. So that's the first thing, is that there's not very many people that talk about this. A lot of people will talk about, Furnish Finder and getting folks off of the, off those platforms. And, but there's a lot of other ways to look at it. Like you can look at hospitals and see what level hospital there are. And for those of you that are listening right now that are like, what the heck is a level of hospital? Well, there's level 1 and level 2 hospitals that are these higher acuity hospitals that have, it's kind of like Grey's Anatomy, where you see, if you guys watched that before, or Scrubs or something, you have, these patients that come in with car accidents where there's brain surgeons that are available, or there's, these specific kind of bone doctors. Those are what level 1 and level 2 hospitals. And those hospitals tend to have a lot of turnover, which means there's a lot of clinicians that are going in and out of there on a regular basis. We have a lot of patients. They take on higher acuity. And in the ICU, they have a 1-to-2 ratio, which means for every one nurse, they can only handle 2 patients at a time, which means you need to have more nurses for critical care. Level 3, level 4, and level 5 hospitals are more of your rural hospitals. And those kind of give you an understanding of Like they're basically, if you were to come in with a cardiac issue, they're going to get you stable and then transport you over to a level 1 or level 2 hospital. Those don't tend to have as many travelers, but it's good to actually ask and find out. And you can just call an HR department and ask like, hey, what level hospital are you? Do you guys work with any agencies? Do you have a recruiter that you're attached to? And that's a very simple, basic way to get started into like this actual space. But I think that, again, going back to what we talked about a second ago, there's not very much information here, and you have to really be able to get educated in this space and really know the vernacular, know how contracts work. And that's where, like, if you guys go on YouTube, you can find me on YouTube where I talk about these things directly. And you can just also go on like Facebook groups where there's travel nurses that are going places. Those travel nursing groups will give you a ton of information too. And you don't have to, it's free, right? It doesn't cost anything. So I think at the end of the day, a lot of this education that we can get from this space is free. But again, just like we talked about a minute ago, you have to actually pay attention to it and seek it out. It's not just going to, land on your lap. And it's not readily available out there for a lot of people. So it's just kind of doing a little bit of legwork and digging.
Oh man, yeah, I really love that. And just to let you know, I'm healthcare background as well. I was dealing with last 22 years, right? We outsourced company. We actually handled workers' comp and auto cases. So, you mentioned what you just mentioned, get transferred from one level to another to a trauma center, right? Where there were trauma burn center where they can sit there and address that, and it is important to see your environment, see what's going on, because your next thing could be right in front of your face and you don't even know it, right? So I know one of the biggest questions I get all the time is about time, right? And how much time it takes. And, obviously the midterm rental thing is very new to a lot of people. So how much time, are you spending on this business?
Yeah. Well, there's a misconception. I want to take this back real quick for a second, Lenny. I think people think when they become entrepreneurs, they get all this time, that they're able to have all this freedom and stuff. And I can tell you that, that's absolutely the biggest lie that anybody will ever tell you in your life. Everybody's laughing right now because they know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't get time when you become an entrepreneur. You get to choose your time when you work, but you're probably going to be working a hell of a lot more than you did at your W-2 job. In fact, you're going to be working 24 hours a day, probably 7 days a week on a regular basis. So like, that's the first thing I want to say is that it's going to be time consuming. So, and this is also probably going to rub some people the wrong way. There's a lazy way to midterm rent, and there's a smart, more intuitive way to midterm rent. And what I do is going to be way more time intensive, which means I'm building a Rolodex, I'm building an actual business, connecting with other companies on a business to business level. And that takes time. It's like having a W-2 job where you're literally saying, okay, I'm going to go in at 10 a.m. I'm going to start sourcing what agencies I'm going to be calling. I'm going to start connecting with these companies. I want to put them on on an email drip kind of thing where I email them weekly on a regular basis. I'm creating a funnel so that I have people to connect with on a regular basis. That's an intuitive way where you're actually building a legitimate business that is outside of real estate. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs think real estate is just going to pay them all this money. They're going to buy these doors and they're going to get an Airbnb and just be like rich. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, you have to put in a lot of time and energy. But just with 2 contracts, I can make $10K a month, literally with 2 contracts. And that's cash flow, $10K a month. And at the end of the day, again, that $10K a month is not passive. It took me a hell of a lot of time and energy to build these resources. So to give you a small example, I probably worked specifically on that end. Well, I have a team that does it now, but when I first started, I was probably doing, 15, 20 hours a week on that. And that's like 2-3 hours a day. And that's after my W-2 job. So, and this is years of building too, by the way. I think people see me and they're like, oh man, this guy's making $100,000 a month on, 10 rentals, and that's awesome. But dude, at the end, I worked for years to get to that point. And, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. But if you are consistent with anything, you're gonna make things happen. Doesn't matter if you're going to the gym or you're eating right. Like, when you're consistent, it's like super hard to fail, right? And I think at the end of the day, the consistency that you have when it comes to any part of your business, particularly this, is going to be incredibly important, because that's what's going to solidify you from the 99% of people that aren't going to do this work.
So I love that. I think that, like you said, there is a misconception of entrepreneurship, and I always get the question, hey, how much do you work? And people are trying to escape one life for another life, I guess it seems like, or they don't want to put in the work, right? And I think that's a challenging piece to it, though. Like, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're very successful, you don't see kind of like the backstory of all the work that's put in. And you have to go through kind of the stage of like pain or like to grow, you have to put in so many hours. And then I guess for me, like when you finally get to a stage where you're like, okay, like I'm passing the pain stage and now I'm kind of reaping the rewards. Then how do you determine like where to put your time? And like, cause I think sometimes there's a challenge, like you want to keep growing and you want to keep reinvesting and but at what point do you say, okay, like what I'm going to pick and choose doing this versus that, or maybe there's more opportunities that kind of come your way. So how do you determine like, what's your thought process around even like breaking down, what do you do to move forward?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you guys something that I struggle with and I'm in therapy for, by the way, right now. So for me, and I'm not in therapy specifically for this. I believe in therapy, so I'm there on a regular basis regardless. But for me, I have this crazy pursuit of being successful. Like it's like burned into my brain. It's something that I want to do. I eat, sleep, breathe it. But at the end of the day, I have to balance what I feel is like my family, right? My kids, my wife, everything that I have around me. And that's incredibly difficult because I have these tractor beams on doing something that I need to build. So I'm going to tell you, everybody right now listening to this, that for me, it's been a very difficult thing to maneuver. Once you work for yourself, you have 24 hours in a day, but you really have to allocate that time wisely. And I think for me, what I started to do was I started to only do things that I'm uniquely qualified to do. Everything else, I'm delegating it off to other people. So if that's answering messages on Furnish Finder, or that's, Airbnb messages that are coming through, or that's diverting specific things to other employees. Those are things, that's how a CEO thinks, right? They're going to delegate all the things that they're not uniquely qualified to do, and they're going to have their team do that. And that's why I think a team is one of the most important things. And I have what most people call virtual assistants. I call mine virtual integral partners, because they're actually the people that are part of the integral piece of our business. And I feel that the word VA is very, it's almost like, it's like so disposable, right? And I don't like that. So for me, I kind of changed the term, and those people and those team members that I have are actually the driving force behind my business. They're doing the things that I'm able to spend my time specifically growing, like putting on a midterm rental summit or something that is more valuable for my time than other people are doing. And I think that once you start growing, you start to figure out like, okay, I need to delegate my time here. If I'm sitting here doing these little things, this is actually taking away from me building and growing in a different way. So I think finding the purpose of what you're doing, and if you're a visionary, I'm a visionary type person where I see things on a larger scale, and I have integrators that are all in my company that actually will do the things that I think about and I say, and they'll put it on paper and actually translate it. And I think those two things, when you marry those two things together, that's a beautiful business that can happen. But it's hard to find that opposite side, almost a yin to your yang, to be able to do that for you. And I think that's where, if you have that mindset to grow and to delegate, you have to do that, Helmeed. And you probably know this now, being in this for a while. It's just something you have to do.
Oh, Jesse, I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. It's funny that you talk about, delegating and the balance. Like currently right now, I'm in one of my cabins out here, Pigeon Forge, and I have another 13 people that's with me here, my family. And, it's sometimes a little struggle because there's things I need to get done while I'm here, but I also want to make sure I spend, time with my family. And you just have to balance that. It's kind of different for everyone else, and having that team in place definitely helps,
Lenny, is there such thing as balance though? Like for real? Is that a real thing?
Well, I'm going to say balance that, so you have to sit here and say, hey, what I got going on today, and you got, it's like, I give you a good example. So, coming here, obviously is 14 of us total. That came your kids, we got like 6 kids, that's 9, 10, 6, 3, they go all over the place, right? Then you have, these adults. So I had my wife write up an agenda. I said, write up an agenda on what we going to do. So now I know what I need to do for the family and be there for the family. And then I can sit there and do the extra things. Example being, I woke up very early this morning and handled a lot of my business. So now when the family woke up, I can sit there and give them, my time. Currently right now, half my family is out skiing, right? And I told them, I'm coming to the next booking, which is snow tubing or whatever it is. and I'll be there, at 5. And so, is there a such thing as balancing? No. I think that there's a such thing as setting up your day, right? Setting up your week, setting up your month, and having a schedule on it. And a great thing, just like you mentioned earlier today, is about, hey, we work 1,000 hours, but guess what? We can choose, right? We got the option to choose. And that's the difference from working a W-2 than being self-employed. For me to sit here and say, hey, I'm going to choose to wake up this early because I like this life. I like that, we're here having all this fun, and honestly speaking, it's on me and on my wife, right? Everyone else is benefiting from it, which is what one of the reasons why, we're doing this. Now, I want to get into a post that you have, and this post was great, and I want you to talk on it for a little bit. You have a post that said, "A taste of freedom can make you unemployable." Man, my little neck hairs went up when I read that. So if you could, share what that really means.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of nailed this a second ago. When we're working for a W-2 job, it's so mundane and regular. It's like, it's what we've been accustomed to, even from elementary, right? We're and I know people have probably heard this before, but we're literally trained to be workers, like worker bees that's what a lot of the school system does in a lot of ways. And you can go back and read about this in the early 1900s and in the 1920s. This is what the healthcare or the education school system was creating employees. At the end of the day, when you truly find the value that you could bring to somebody, I think that's where you're just like, holy crap, I can make $1. I remember specifically what happened to me. I'm going to give you guys this example. I was doing midterm and short-term stuff, and I remember being super successful. I went to a real estate meetup, and I just was talking to random people about what I was doing. And I remember I got a call. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and it was this dude that was like a high in my market. This guy that's like a super high net worth, and has a bunch of doors. And he's just like, "Hey man, I want you to teach me how you're doing what you're doing." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm super busy at work. Like, I'll try to figure out some time." He's like, "Oh no, what is that? What does your time cost to you? What is it? What's your time worth?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. You got $5,000?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do." And that was me just like shooting a random number, like joking with him. And he's like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem." And I'm just like, holy crap. Like, I can literally go make $5,000 right now by literally just hanging out with this dude for a couple hours and just talking about what am I doing, how I'm doing this. Or I can go work 80 hours. Actually, probably I was making $200,000 in my last job. So it was like, I had golden handcuffs. Like, that's a crazy amount of money, especially in the Central Valley where I'm at. So for me to make $200K to leave that, and I'm just like, if I can make $5,000 by sitting with a dude for, a couple hours, like that's 80 hours of work. That's literally what 80 hours of work was to me. So at that point, I'm just like, something just went off in my brain, and I felt these goosebumps, and I have them right now talk about gratitude. You guys see this right here? You see the goosebumps that I got going right now? Probably not.
I get goosebumps just looking at your skin. Your sexy teeth.
Thanks, buddy. I put like 7 layers on
your tattoo.
Oh yeah, this too. But yeah, you guys, I like, that's where I realized, like, holy crap, like, I don't need to be employed. Like, this is actual freedom where I can go make that amount of money in literally 2 or 3 hours as opposed to working 80 hours a week. So I think a lot of people don't realize that they can do that, and they're limiting their beliefs on what they can actually truly do. And I think that's such a huge important part of growing and being successful. Is everybody listening to this right now, whether you're just starting, like, you have that thought that I can get there eventually, but you can actually get there, and you can probably get there a lot faster if you start actually truly believing. And I sound like Tony Robbins right now, like the Hispanic version of Tony Robbins talking about this, but in reality, it's like, that's the freaking truth. Like, you can literally do anything you want to do. I tell my kids this, I'm like, whatever you guys want to freaking do, like, you can really do it, but you have to think it you can, you have to feel that you can, and you have to educate yourself in a way that you can. And I think a lot of times people just don't, they just don't have that wiring or that mindset, or people encouraging them in that way.
So like, so I want to touch on that a little bit. So I think a lot of people struggle with like what their value is, or even the how, as far as like, how do I do it? I feel that I have a lot of value, but I don't even know where to start. And so like, what would you say to somebody as far as like even discovering their own personal value and figuring that out? Like, how do you get started, I guess?
Yeah. You just got to do it. And speaking of personal value, like I struggle with personal value, guys. I think someday, like I'm gonna wake up and people are gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's a fraud," or "This guy's not real." Like I do that, and I've been doing this for a long time. Like I'm fairly successful in this space. So this is not just like for people that are high level people have the same thought process too. Like it's not just that. We all struggle with the same things. I just overcome them in a different way. And I think at the end of the day, again, it's just around surrounding yourself. And this is like the recipe. I went and watched Pace Morby about a month ago in Fresno, where he talked with Jamil and a bunch of these other people. Every single one of those speakers, every time I watch them speak, they all say the same thing. Be around the right people. Focus on building something for yourself. Focus on building something for your family. And just take action. Like Tony Robbins says, right? Just like take action, take action, take action. That's literally what every single successful person does, but they just do it on a 100x type scale, where it's like macro things every single day. And I think that's where you have to like really, you wake up in the morning, you talk about gratitude, do that. But then also like, what do I need to do to be successful today? Like what's one little small thing that I could do? What's one agency that I can call? What is one person that I can get out of a Facebook group that I can connect with? What is one agency that is a relocation specialist I can find on LinkedIn? Like literally that's what you got to do every day. You have to do these small incremental things, and those little things will build confidence. And it's just doing that on a large period of time that gives you that confidence and that motivation to continue to do more. And it's little wins along the way, right? It's the little wins that are going to build that confidence. Even failures are going to build confidence because now I know not to do that. Or now I know I could speak in a different way, or now I know I can change the direction of the conversation. And it's just going back to what we talked about. This entire kind of conversation is about, thinking about the opportunities that are in front of us. And it's just learning about what we can do and how to minimize potential issues or, things like that. So, I hope that makes sense. I'm I'm going on a tangent right now, you guys.
No, that's great. I love tangents.
You're great. You're great. And the biggest thing there, is about the wins. Everybody got them, and you have to celebrate your wins. And I dropped the word little because regardless to how little or how big, it's a win and it should be celebrated and appreciated, on any level. Jesse, we can sit here and talk forever. So that means that we got to have you back on 100%. But there's something that we want to ask you where, once again, here at Find Your Freedom, we don't have guests, we have friends. So what does find your freedom mean to you?
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, it's, what drives you, what makes you happy. And I think time is something that people always talk about, especially real estate investors are always like, I want more time. But in fact, we just talked about how you don't necessarily get more time. But it's really, truly, essentially doing things that you love. So I think finding freedom to me is doing something that I truly love, where I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, awesome, I get to talk to Omid and Lenny today. Like, this is fucking cool. Or I get to talk to a couple other investors, or, I get the opportunity to do things instead of, like a lot of times people get stuck in that, like, oh man, I got to go do this at my job, or I got to go meet my boss today, or I got to go do this. Like, I don't feel that. Like, I feel the exact opposite of that, in fact. So I think for me, that's what freedom is allowing me to do things that I love. I love real estate. I actually love like pieces of real estate. I actually really enjoy it a lot. I love watching things transform, whether that's a person with the mindset, watching them evolve, which is why I think I'm a coach, or I feel like I'm a coach, or I enjoy that mentorship part of stuff. And then also real estate too. You buy something that, this, you buy something that's dilapidated, looks like crap, and then all of a sudden, 3-6 months later, it's like this beautiful work of art. You're just like, holy crap, this is what it was before. And I love that change in the mindset and the shift in real estate. So for me, just like, dude, I'm living a dream and I'm trying to be way more present about it. And I struggle just like everybody else does on a regular basis. I'm not here to tell you that, this life is perfect and beautiful. And it is when you take a moment to really actually listen to it and pay attention to it, just like you talked about your friend with the, with the birds and stuff. And I think we all have this like moments of clarity. And I think every single person here will eventually have these points, and you got to pay attention. You got to listen to it, because the universe or God or whatever it is that you believe in will give you these opportunities to see them. And it's just up to you to actually make movement on them once they happen to arise in your life.
Jesse, like I always love the thing about you that I really admire is like how candid you are. And, I think just you sharing that it's, do what you love. Like just, it's as simple as that. Just do what you enjoy, and, and things will kind of work themselves out. So like, I think although we have to cut this short, like where can we find you? Like people like just, they're gravitating to your story. Where can we find you?
Yeah. You could find me on Instagram at The Real Jesse Vasquez. Unfortunately, there's like a bunch of Hispanics named Jesse Vasquez, so I had to call myself The Real Jesse Vasquez. So it's and it's not Jesus, you guys. Okay, my name's actually Jesse. All right, everyone's like, I got a lot of Mexican buddies. They're like, dude, your name's Jesus. I'm like, do I need to get my birth certificate out? Like, come on, guys. You can find me there on Instagram, or you can find me on YouTube at Jesse Vasquez. You can find me on Twitter. Everything's the same at The Real Jesse Vasquez. So yeah, man, I appreciate you guys for having me up here. We talked about it all. We talked about Dumb and Dumber, how Omi doesn't know about Rookie of the Year, but he pretended he did. We learned it all today, right, guys? I feel like this is my I just took over your guys' show. It's my podcast now. You know what, you guys? Welcome to the Big Book Show.
There you go. Hey, listen, what we like to do is we like to interrupt people while they're working out, driving their car, and shatter some eardrums, man. So on the count of 3, we're going to get the biggest boom that you can, all right? So I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, we go boom. All right, y'all ready?
Yes. Ready.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Listen here. This was one of the best, and I'm going to say it again, the best podcast shows that we had thus far. Jesse is going to come back. He gave us the head nod. He gave us the yes. If you are not following him, I don't know who you are following. I advise you to get in contact with him. Go to his page. Everything is there. Super clean, super awesome, super detailed. Jesse is the effing man, I'm going to sit here and call. So with that being said, man, we just want to bring more episodes like this to you. And to do that, we need a little bit of your help. We need you to come in, listen to the podcast, be a true listener, and then give an honest 5-star rating. And if you got any questions about midterms or anything, Jesse is a friend of ours. We'll get anything that you need to you so you can be successful. Remember to take action, and also share this with all your friends, your girlfriends, your boyfriends, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, and everyone, so they can come on in and help find their freedom. Until the next episode, we talk to everyone soon.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.